Welcome here inside Quicken Loans Arena. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers postgame show here on cleveland.com. Chris Fedor, Joe Vardon, and Chris Haynes with you. Here to recap another Cavs win, now 3 in a row for the Wine and Gold. 109-97 the final against Indiana. And this one kind of followed the same script of the last two, Chris. Against Orlando, Cavs got out to a great start, continued that throughout the game. Against Washington, great start, continued it throughout the game. Great start tonight against Indiana. Indiana crawled back, but then the Cavs ran away in the second half again. What is it about the Cavs and starting fast lately?
Well, that's a good thing because they had a problem early on not starting fast. So now they've mastered that. Now it's all about, I've been saying it time and time again, just sustaining that effort, sustaining that energy. A lot of it has to do with the bench production, because you have to rely on the bench to come in sometimes, and they're just not providing that same type of mustard out there on the court. So that's going to be a work in progress for those guys to stay the course.
Joe, the good news is the Cavs got a season high from Kevin Love. First play of the game, they went to Kevin Love. He delivered, made a jumper against David West. It was a sign of things to come. Kevin Love finishes with 28 points on 9 of 13 shooting. LeBron-James didn't have to carry the full load offensively tonight. It's one of the first times for the Cavs.
Yeah, I think it's the first time, really, and it's what I'm writing about, and I think it's a very important point here that for the first time LeBron kind of played like a low-stress game. In the 7 previous wins, some of them were blowouts, but LeBron was averaging 32 a game, okay? And their 7 losses, he's averaging 19. So for him to be able to come out and score 19 points and actually be the third leading scorer, I mean, you don't want to get caught up too much in numbers, but it's going to pay dividends for a couple of reasons.
Chris, no Anderson Varejao tonight for the Cavs. He's got a rib contusion. No word on his status for Tuesday against Milwaukee. David Blatt said before the game they're just being cautious with it. They understand the history of Anderson Varejao and his injuries, and it was a tough physical opponent tonight, Indiana. Early on, it looked like the Cavs were missing Andy because Tristan Thompson comes in first quarter, 0 points, 1 rebound. But Tristan Thompson picked it up, and David Blatt, after the game, called him the unsung hero.
Yeah, just from his defensive prowess. And one thing that Tristan Thompson is a pretty good, solid defender. He's not going to get, accumulate a couple of defensive numbers because that's just not the way. He plays nice, solid defense, stops guys from getting the shots that they want, and he comes away with rebounds. So from that standpoint, he was a plus. But, you talk about Tristan Thompson being out there not scoring. Kevin Love picked up the slack because of Tristan Thompson and the way he plays and where Tristan Thompson's at on the court. Anderson Varejao, he's been playing really well. He's been the most consistent Cav for at least a week and a half. But he takes shots, and where he's at on the court hurts Kevin Love to a certain point. And I think you've seen that's why Kevin Love was able to get off, because of Tristan knows his role, and he knows that when he's out there on the top of the key, Kevin Love is going to be there, right on the inside. If Tristan is right there at the bottom, on the blow block, Kevin Love is going to be on the outside. So I think he has a real unique and nice chemistry with Tristan Thompson.
Well, you mentioned earlier the bench. The bench continues to be a problem. I think they were outscored 52-16 tonight against the Indiana Pacers. And let's face it, folks, Indiana does not have a great bench. I mean, Lavoy Allen, C.J. Miles, Luis Scola in his hairnet, Damian Rudej, C.J. Watson, Chris Copeland. I mean, come on. There's no Lou Williams here on this team for Indiana. But still, Joe, the Cavs bench gets thoroughly outplayed. What can David Blatt do, if anything, to get more production from this unit? And I know part of it was Tristan Thompson was in the starting lineup tonight, so he lost a bench player there. But, I mean, come on, 16 points from the bench. A lot of those came in garbage time, too.
Yeah, they really did. And so your question was, what can the coach do? And I'm not sure that there's a lot he can do. I mean, this is the bench that he has to play, and they have to play better. I think they know it. I mean, part of it was just what was happening in the game. I mean, when you look at the Cavs' first quarter, for the most part, they were defending on the perimeter, forcing turnovers and missed shots and running, okay? When the running stopped, then the ball stopped a little bit. It became more of a half-court game. And when you think about like a Dion Waiters, you think about a couple, who else would make an impact off the bench, they are not, Dion's not a half-court guy. He's more of a transition guy. And so he needs to be playing more in transition. I mean, you could try like some spot-up shooters who could help you. But as was pointed out, later in the press conference, the coach isn't playing those two guys right now. So, that's kind of the hand that he's dealt.
Those two guys being Mike Miller and James Jones. And Chris, David Blatt was pretty adamant that he's not going to put Mike Miller in the game anytime soon. Mike Miller is going to continue what he's been doing for this team, which is waving towels and sitting on one knee. He's not even sitting on the bench. He's kneeling next to the bench. Why is it that David Blatt doesn't want to play him?
You know what? I have no clue. I think there's obviously defensive reasons and the fact that when he's been out there, he hasn't been hitting this jump shot on a consistent basis. But with that being said, Mike Miller or James Jones is not the answer to coming up with bench points. But at the same time, it's still hard for me to believe when you look at the guys that he has coming off the bench that Mike Miller you can't find any type of minutes, regular minutes for Mike Miller. We don't see what goes on in practice. We see the last 5-10 minutes of shooting practice. We don't know if he's getting outplayed or he's looking bad or terrible. Coach Blatt has a read on him, and I would trust him as the head coach that he's making the right decisions. But still, I still think there's enough room to find some minutes for Mike Miller on a regular.
Another terrific game for Kyrie-Irving, and it was an all-around game for Kyrie. 24 points, a career-high 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, a season-high for Kyrie-Irving. Is it correct to say, guys, and I'll ask both of you this question, starting with you, Joe, is it correct to say that Kyrie-Irving has been the most consistent Cavalier this season?
I think so. I think that's a great question.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
You're going to go against LeBron, are you?
Yeah, I mean LeBron would go against LeBron. He for him had a really tough week, however long ago that was. Kyrie, meanwhile, he had the hiccup in Portland, and then against Utah he had all those points but 0 assists. So that was kind of bad Kyrie. But, a bad Kyrie with 34 points or whatever he had is still pretty good. And since that trip, he has been fantastic. He has been absolutely my biggest surprise and, what pretty much who I've enjoyed watching, I would say, almost as much as anybody, just because of not only how he scores the ball, but how he's bought in and how he's playing defensively on the perimeter. It has changed the early complexion of the season for the Cavs.
Chris, what do you think? Most consistent Cavs so far this year?
Yeah, I would agree with Joe. You look at all the things that were thrown at this guy. You talk about this being the high stakes of this team, all the pressure and everything, and so-called him and LeBron having the dispute or not, whatever. The guy still puts up buckets. A lot of young guys, they still, they will fold under pressure. This guy is still putting up numbers, and at the same time, he stepped up on the defensive end. Same time, he's being a better playmaker. So he has evolved and has progressed with each passing game. So you got to give him all the props in the world because there's no doubt about it. With Kyrie, what they're 8-7 now. They just got over 500 now. Without him, man, on this team and what he's been able to do, they'll be in worse shape than they are now.
So there it is, the Cavs back over 500, 8-7 on the season through 15 games. They win it tonight against Indiana, 109-97. They're off from practice tomorrow. They'll return to the practice floor on Monday and back here at the Q Tuesday night against the Milwaukee Bucks, who are coached not by Scott Skiles, but by Jason Kidd. So we'll be back here with you on Tuesday night here on cleveland.com. Until then, continue to check out all of our coverage into the night and tomorrow morning, cleveland.com/Cavs. For Joe Vardon and Chris Haynes, I'm Chris Fedor. Good night, everybody.